What are you up to?
Oh, this is just for a recipe, I promise.
I just asked what you were doing.
I mean, look, it cooks out, it's completely harmless.
Calm down, man. I was just saying hi.
I would never drink this, or anything like it.
Literally nobody is asking about that.
You know, it's not even that hard. I can have fun without it.
Okay, that's...
Bread pudding is not by any means exclusive to New Orleans, but it is a special treat here and we enjoy it around holiday time. I think of this similar to a soaked cake because it is basically just soaked bread that's baked. It's a great way to get rid of older ingredients before they go bad, but it can also be made with fresh stuff, which I'll show you how to do here. The pudding we'll make today is a custard soaked bread with a caramel rum sauce. So we'll start with the bread, and you can really customize this and make it whatever you want. I've got 2 loaves of French bread here, but that's actually not my first choice. I was in search of some brioche or challah, but I couldn't find it at any local stores. You could even do this with like store-bought croissants. That'll give you a sweeter and richer recipe than what I have here. But that said, store-bought French bread will work great, and it's actually traditional to use that in New Orleans anyway. I'm just cutting a pound of this into like 1-inch cubes, but in hindsight, I would make them a little smaller because it'll just fit better in the casserole dish. And if you have the time, I would just sit this overnight at room temperature to dry out a bit. But very often we don't have that kind of foresight when doing recipes like this, so I'm going to speed up the process with my oven. Just load those cubes onto a tray and then get that into your oven at 250 Fahrenheit for around 30 minutes, just so they're dried out. We're trying to evacuate most of that moisture so that when we add the custard later, it'll soak in and not be too saturated, which your liquid filling is also really customizable. I've seen a wide range of stuff that people add to this. My personal favorite thing resembles something like a French custard. I just love that rich and thick texture which soaks really well into the bread. I also think going through this short preliminary cooking process is going to make this a little better than just mixing ingredients and dumping them in. So into a medium sauce pot, I'm dumping a mixture of 2 cups of heavy cream and 2 cups of whole milk. If you have vanilla beans, then making a custard is a good way to put them to use. So I'm going to split one and then scrape the seeds out with the back of my knife and add the seeds and the pod into my sauce pot. And if you don't have one, you can just add a tablespoon of vanilla extract, which I'm also going to do here because my beans aren't super strong anyway. Also tossing in 4 tablespoons of butter, and I'm also going to microplane in a little bit of nutmeg because it makes stuff like this taste better. If you want to add cinnamon, you could also add that here. I just don't want that flavor in my bread pudding this time. But that's going to melt together over medium heat for just a few minutes until it just starts to steam and bubble around the edges. You don't want to boil this. I think this is called scalding, and you're just looking for this around the edges of your pot. In the meantime, we're going to get the egg part of our custard ready, and that's just going to be 4 whole eggs and 2 egg yolks. I'm also dumping in 200 grams or a cup of sugar. Using an electric beater, I'm going to mix the 2 of these together and introduce some air into it. Just make sure all that sugar is dissolved and everything is homogeneous and starting to pale a bit. And once my cream mixture is steaming, I'm going to add a pinch of salt for extra flavor, and then we're going to use it to temper our egg mixture. That means adding a small amount to it to bring up the temperature of the eggs gradually. I like to use a ladle to do this in a few iterations. Some people say you only need a little bit of this before you can add the whole thing back into the sauce pot, but I've been burned too many times making custards and scrambling my eggs with too much heat, so I'm being really cautious with this and adding a good bit of the mixture over the course of a few minutes. But when you're confident the eggs are tempered, you can dump the whole thing back into your sauce pot and mix everything together. And some people add raisins or cranberries to their bread pudding, but I just didn't want that this time. I wanted this to be a white chocolate version. So into this hot custard mixture, I'm going to add in 4 ounces of white chocolate that I've chopped up. You could use white chocolate chips like this instead, but they don't melt as easily, and I'm going to use them later anyway. I just cut up a bar of Ghirardelli chocolate, and I'm adding that in while this is warm so it'll melt together. Okay, now into my 9x13 baking dish. I'm first going to grease with a little bit of butter, and then I'm going to add in my artificially staled bread. It's okay if it sticks out at the top because this mixture is going to soften it up and allow you to press it down. We're going to dump all that beautiful custard into this. Just make sure you take out those vanilla pods if you had those. Try to spread it evenly around, and then make sure the top ones are soaked as well as the bottom ones. After a minute or so, you can start to press this down, and you'll notice that it'll drop in volume by a bit. And it's a good practice to let this sit and soak for like 20 to 30 minutes just to make sure the bread is soaked before it bakes. And also before it does bake, I like to mix the bottom into the top just to make sure everything is evenly soaked. And as a final touch before baking, and to mark this as a white chocolate bread pudding, I'm going to add some white chocolate chips over the top. That goes into my oven at 350 Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes. You're just looking for most of the mixture to be absorbed, but you definitely don't want all of it to be dried out, and you also don't want the top pieces to brown and dry out too much. Just keep an eye on it. 30 minutes was a perfect amount for me. You can take that out and let it cool down for a bit, but while it was baking, it was a perfect time to make the caramel rum sauce. Into a wide saucepan, I'm going to add a half cup each, or 100 grams each of brown sugar and white sugar. I'm also adding in about a quarter cup of water to help these melt and caramelize. So I initially stir all that together so it's homogeneous, but I let this sit over medium heat untouched. You can just swirl it around every few minutes, but I don't think you're supposed to stir caramel while it's cooking. Over the course of about 10 minutes, this will start to darken and take on some more color. It's more easily visible if you only use white sugar, but I like the taste of brown sugar, so that's why I split it here. And after those 10 minutes, this should have reduced a bit and got some really nice color. You see that really dark bubbling going on. That's a good time to stop. You can take it off heat. Just make sure you don't burn this. We're going to quickly whisk in a half cup or 120 grams of heavy cream. That'll loosen things up and lighten things up a bit. It'll cool your caramel down, but it'll make everything richer. And for some more richness, I'm adding in 4 more tablespoons of butter to this. And you can put this back over low heat because we want to reduce this to make it thicker. I'm adding a good pinch of salt because salted caramel tastes great. And yeah, at this point, this is just a salted caramel sauce, which is amazing. But to make this a rum sauce, I'm going to add in 60 mils or a quarter cup of rum. I just bought this random brand from Walmart and it worked fine. Just going to add a nice depth of flavor to our sauce when we coat the bread pudding with it. And finally, I'm just adding a couple teaspoons of vanilla extract. So over medium heat, I'm just going to stir this around for a few more minutes until it reduces into a nice thick sauce consistency. You can kind of make this whatever you want it to be. I think I like mine to be on the thicker side, but just remember it's going to thicken more as it cools, and if it does that too much, you can add water back into it to make it thinner. But once your bread pudding has cooled for like 10 to 15 minutes out of the oven, you can apply this sauce to it. I like to add like half the rum sauce I made and then reserve the other half so people can add it individually into their own portions. But it will soak into the bread, so you can put it all here and it's fine. That's just my 2 cents. But after this is cooled for at least 30 minutes, it's probably good enough to cut into so it won't spill all over the place. You're not really going to get beautiful slices of this because it's kind of just a mess of things thrown together. But serve yourself up a portion and then coat it in some more of that rum sauce. So beautiful. This is a really nice, cost-effective dessert, which I think most people that try it will love. And again, there's tons of this type of dish all over the world that everyone makes their own twist on. This is just my twist from New Orleans. But I say it's about time to get to the taste test.
It's been a while, Vanilla Milk. So it's the day before Thanksgiving when I'm filming this. I'm going to be bringing the rest of this 9x13 dish to my family tomorrow to enjoy. So the last thing I should be doing is eating junk right before my big day tomorrow. But oh well. I've eaten a lot of bread pudding in my days, and there's a pretty wide range of it, even within just New Orleans cuisine. But I've really never met a bad one, so hopefully this one stacks up to the rest. Cheers. Oh yeah. That is rich, in a good way too. This type of French bread is a really nice canvas to soak up all these rich, sweet flavors that we added to it. I really do wish I would have found some brioche or some challah to do instead of this French bread, but it still works really well. And this rum sauce on top, I think, is the star of the show. It's just like a spiced up version of caramel, and everybody loves caramel. So I feel like this is a little bit different, but still a traditional holiday dessert that you can bring to any function. It's really easy to throw together. I mean, most recipes nowadays are easy to make. You don't see people advertising something as being hard to make unless it's like macarons or croissants. But anyway, all that to say, this is really worth doing if you can find your own recipe or something with raisins or cranberries instead of chocolate. It's worth doing at some point in your life if you want to change up the regular desserts that you make. But this is not my Thanksgiving video. I already released that, and this is going to be released way after anyway. But I hope all of you had a good Thanksgiving, and I hope the rest of your holiday season goes well. Thank you all for watching. Be blessed, and I'll see you next time. Oh, stop. I need my bike immediately.